Oh, it's a podcast.
Right. Now,
It is a
Can I talk about my tea now? Can I talk about my tea
I'm
story?
You
gonna
can talk about your tea
you guys
story.
have fun. Yes, please do your tea story.
Is this tea in the drink sense or tea in the golf sense?
No, this is tea in the like steeped beverage sense. Because I got into tea because I needed a new way to be more annoying.
Right.
And Chris got me some Lapsang Souchong, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good." I always thought I had hated tea, but I actually only had the British version of it, and the British version of tea is shit.
It's true.
And so I mentioned this offhandedly in one of the group chats I'm in, and friend of the show Matty Lubchansky was struck by a vision and Googled the words tactical tea and found a company that sells tactical tea. There's actually
That's
two.
Not real. That's not real.
There's two. There's a British one and an American one. The American one like sells good tea. It's like loose leaf. The British one is like tea in bags. And so what I'm drinking now, because I could not resist the like bant, I guess, is a mug of a tea called Thin Brew Line. And it's got a cop on the little
I don't want to be here anymore.
It tastes okay.
Now,
so that's my contribution.
Let me get this straight. Thin Brew Line is the British one?
Well, it's the British one. It's a British tea made by Tactical Tea. The American one, the company is called like Rakasan Tea Company. And they're fine, I guess. Like the tea looks quite nice.
Where does the thin blue line go on the Union flag?
Oh, it just runs straight through the middle. Like our cops wear those patches too. It's atrocious. You even see them with the like Scottish flag ones, where it's just the Scottish flag in like grayscale with a thin blue line straight through the middle. So
angry.
I don't like that.
No.
Only a matter of time until someone makes a trans flag thin blue line flag, and
have you ever seen
that's going to be the day
Disney
that I perish.
Thin blue line.
Yes, protecting the magic, the like Disney security challenge coins. Yeah.
Liam, you're a little quiet.
Those.
Oh, am I? Okay, hang on 1 second.
Yeah, this is just okay.
Now? Is that better?
You sound fine.
You sound fine. You're still a little quiet on my end, though.
Am I still quiet?
Just eat the mic.
Oh, yeah. Fuck, dude.
Stop being so dynamic. Become boring and monotone like me.
Shut the goddamn hell up. I will piss in your mouth. Oh, I don't want to read the fan. I don't want to read the fan fiction.
Is he further away from the mic now?
Yes. I don't know what he's doing.
Yes, he is.
Just orbiting the mic.
I was about to say.
Better?
Yes.
Please end this.
You need like a setup of mics, like the cameras they used in the Matrix to do the bullet time.
I'll get right on that. Do you want me to expense that to the pod account, or are you giving me the money?
Yeah, we needed 25 Sure SM7Bs.
They had that auction of all of the like props and shit from the Matrix that Lana Wachowski did. So like, we just pick them up from there. Easy.
We do. No, I'm not saying that on air because someone will try and steal it. I will say, before we get into the pod, I took a call today from somebody at iHeartRadio who wanted to help us, or wanted us to monetize the podcast. And I was trying to explain that, like,
we monetized this by accident ourselves.
Yeah. I'm like, they're like, well, you know, the insulting thing about it was that they like didn't know anything about our podcast. They were like, yeah, what's your podcast about? I'm like, motherfucker, shouldn't you be doing this research? Like, we are all
grubby, like 49ers, right? This is our stake. This is our claim. We have landed upon it by accident. It has wrenched us all out of poverty. And while we haven't gotten to the big, like, railroad baron mansions yet, we're still at the stage where, like, if you try and, like, take our, like, little gold mine from us, we'll stove your head in with a pickaxe.
Well, you know what they say about podcast booms? Sell microphones.
Sell SM7s. That's right.
All right, let's do this.
Hello, everyone who's been listening now. Welcome to Will There's Your Problem. It's the bonus episode. You know everything, but we have a guest.
Yes. Guest. Spencer, go. Introduce yourself. Something.
Hi, I'm Spencer Hall. I am a sports person who contributes to my own newsletter called Channel 6, which I do with my partner Holly Anderson. I also have a podcast that is on hiatus, but we'll be back shortly in partnership with somebody way cooler than iHeartRadio coming up in June, the Shutdown Fullcast. I also appear on ESPN for various things, including their fake television show Debatable and a show about SEC football, college football I do in the fall, called Thinking Out Loud.
I'm gonna get this out of the way now. Just it only has to happen once, but it has to happen. Is there a sports ball happening? I didn't know.
That was good.
I wasn't aware.
No, that was good.
None of us like that term, Alice. You shouldn't say that.
Sorry, I'm not like
you will learn
I don't have a past to say that.
The hideously corrupt monster that is NCAA football. In spite of yourself, you will learn to love it. Yeah, so we're here. This is sort of an expansion of the segment in the university bonus episode where I hand drew the graphic that said "Death to the NCAA" in paint 5 minutes before we went to air. So let's get into why the NCAA is a hideously corrupt bastard monster.
The NCAA is the National Collegiate.
It's on the next slide, Alice.
Okay.
No, it isn't. It just says NCAA.
What?
I do have to interrupt here for a moment because everyone on this podcast, because this is a guest episode, you've smoothed in. Everybody knows y'all. You're givens. You're part of the cast. On this podcast, you introduce yourself with pronouns, and I'm a sports person. They're not quite there yet, so I'm going to do two things. One, I'll be like, "Hi, I'm Spencer. My pronouns are he, him." Just wanted to do that so I get the full the full courtesy.
You get like extra credit for that. Yes. You didn't have to.
Well, and I have to because in my head there's a little hillbilly, and my only problem, is with the little hillbilly in my head who, when we use pronouns, has to say, "Who wants to know?" Right? Like who's asking? The little 49er at the Claimer being like, "What are your pronouns?" And be like, "What's it to you?" I don't know you.
Fastest pronouns in the West.
Draw.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Only guy who knows my gender is me. Even I'm not so sure.
There is one gender, but it is unspeakable and unknowable. Could I have...
Please tread on me. I want to see if I'm into that.
Daddy. Could I have the next slide?
No. Yes.
The NCAA stands for National Common Ass Association. Okay, I don't know.
Yes, yes, it does.
But Liam, what's the NCAA? What's sports actually?
Ross,
to understand this, we have to go back to ancient Herculaneum. Actually, earlier
keep
than
going.
that.
Keep going with the joke, Ross. Keep going. You're funny.
Have to go to the sort of Mesoamerican ball game.
Yeah.
The first sport to be played in America.
Thousands of years ago, a man put a ball in a hoop.
Mostly played by enslaved warriors, which will continue.
Thus, sports was invented.
Yes. All right. So what is the NCAA? It's the National Collegiate Athletic Association, which I spelled collegiate.
That sounds quite nice.
Temple education really paying dividends.
The National Collegiate Athletic Association sounds like somewhere a bunch of guys in polo shirts go in Manhattan to play racquetball or something.
Well, it's Indianapolis, but yes, they'll do that. The precursor to the NCAA is founded in 1905 at the behest of Teddy Roosevelt. Because during the 1904 football season, 18 men died playing football. Yeah.
Jesus. I mean, that's...
In 1920, early football is not for the faint of heart. People kept dying, which is sort of why this thing comes into being.
Here's the thing, right? People will be like, your ancestors, they were manly, they were alphas, they were sigmas, they did stuff you couldn't even imagine.
They died playing football at Princeton,
I was gonna say, we can survive a concussion that would have killed any one of our ancestors, so who's the real bitch, is my question.
Also, the game itself that is being played at this point bears no resemblance whatsoever to the modern game, besides the smashy bits. You could not pass the ball. That was not legal. Or I think the better term is sometimes it happened and nobody was sure that it was legal when the ball got thrown forward. Okay. It didn't even resemble rugby so much because They weren't as spaced out as rugby players, and clotheslining was totally acceptable, as was something called a roll block, where if you weren't really sure what to do with somebody with the ball, you simply threw yourself at their legs like a lawnmower.
So it's the Oklahoma drill, but all the time.
So, sort of half rugby, half professional wrestling. I really like this.
Does this
one
bear
player
any...
that season in 1904? Go ahead, Ross.
Oh, does this bear any relationship to like the predecessor sport behind soccer, where there's just sort of a scrum, everyone heaped on top of each other trying to get the ball, and then they'd like manage to move it like 10 feet, and then there was just a scrum again of like writhing human bodies?
There was one, it bears some resemblance to that. I remember because there was a huge ball and like the whole village would come out and inevitably like 15 people would die and they would call it a successful game. That was the big precursor. It was like Calvin ball, basically.
Right.
This version of the game, the rules kept tweaking a little bit. At one point, there was a version of the game where if you punted the ball through the end zone, you got the ball back. So the idea was simply to just do nothing, was to just take 3 downs, then punt the ball. And if it got to the end zone, you got it back. So some teams could just sit there and like exploit this glitch and win 2-0. Like you just had to score 2 points off a safety or something. So it was a very static, very violent game. In that 1904 season, a player died from what was described as a piece of vegetation or twig shoved through his nostril into his brain.
Oh, that's one of those things that like sounds like an urban myth.
That's a predecessor to a COVID test right there.
And thus triggering one of Teddy Roosevelt's like weird reformist impulses where he's like, I'm going to get in here and I'm going to organize this so it's like good, clean fun with a certain value of clean.
No, people keep dying. And it's not until about 1929 when they reformed the rules again that efforts to simply ban the sport outright sort of go away. Excuse me for 1 second.
For about like 100 years and then come back.
Right. So amateurism is sort of codified in 1929. I'll sort of get to what the NCAA defines as amateurism. But for our purposes, it's simply not being paid by the school.
Okay.
And specifically not being an employee of the school.
Is this like the sort of divide between amateur and professional sportsmen in the UK, where it's like it's gentlemanly, right, to like just do this for fun, and you can support yourself by your own means, kind of thing?
No, I wouldn't say that, because there have been bans on maybe. I don't know. I feel like maybe Spencer, I'll defer to here if that's something you want to address, just because I'm trying to think like. Now, Alice, student athletes, these kids can get paid, sort of, or there are allowances for them for like minutia and essentials. But yeah, the expectation is that there's a perfectly spherical player who doesn't need to eat or go see his family or anything like that.
Or study to get like a degree, right?
Yeah,
that is the idea. However, the term student athlete itself, it should be known, is a legal invention that Walter Byers came up with in defense of a lawsuit against Fort Lewis A&M back in 1955, because Ray Dennison, who was an Army vet and he had 3 kids, he got kneed in the head on a kickoff and died. And the wife, his widow, Billy, sued for benefits and under the assumption that he was an employee of the team, and to avoid any connotation of them being unemployed and thus subject to all of the protections that American labor law had to offer at the time. It wasn't even that many. And still really isn't that many now. They referred to him as a student athlete, never a football player, because that could be understood as being an employee. And it worked. His widow got nothing. He was not considered an employee.
Right. We will talk about that in the Texas Christian, following, of course, the love of Jesus, fucked a paralyzed player out of any restitution after he was paralyzed on a sweep.
But as for compensation,
yes, Ross.
Liam, you're still a little quiet.
Okay, let me just eat the microphone.
Yes, that's much better.
Is this much better? Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Let me just adjust my whole body to accommodate you.
Yes, it makes my life a lot easier. Liam, you have a very high dynamic range of voice.
Thank you. I don't know if that's an insult or not.
You're very expressive.
Yeah.
Going to voice therapy to lower my dynamic range.
I will go into the Roz
just accidentally feminized me.
So,
as well.
in 1951, the Infractions Committee is created. This is the worst thing to ever happen in the existence of sports.
See, you can't even keep Roz's voice up for like two sentences.
Yes, because you got too quiet again.
God damn it. Okay. I'm fucking with my levels.
No, the emotions crept in on
there we go.
Yeah, you have to
just be like
become a Vulcan.
Yeah. In 1951, the Infractions Committee is created.
Just
this is
read
the worst
from
thing
the
to ever happen
Wikipedia article
in the existence of sports.
That's what we do anyway. No, the NCAA's Wikipedia article is very like the NCAA. It's just corporate speak. I did not use Wikipedia.
They hired some like Wikipedia consultants.
Before we were accused of just reading the Wikipedia, I did not touch the Wikipedia. I stole all of this from an Atlantic article.
Yeah, what they're not, which Taylor Branch has done great stuff on that. So Taylor, go ahead and check out his work because he was the one who came up with college athletics as plantation as the central metaphor for things. And Taylor Branch, I believe, when that came out, was met with a great deal of, "Oh, that's hyperbole," and like 30 years later, it's like, "You're probably right, dude. Seems accurate."
It's an indelicate metaphor only because it's correct.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like the bare minimum, by the way, when Teddy Roosevelt, like the NCAA is formed in part to protect football because Teddy Roosevelt liked it, because it was masculine, because they played it at Harvard.
It's the same way he like founded a shitload of like conservationist things because he liked killing moose.
Yeah.
Like you got to make sure there's
got
to make sure there's enough moose to kill. Got to make sure there's enough football players to like play football. Yeah.
I'm about it. One day I want to kill a hippo. What if we don't have any of those left? Thus conservation, so I can kill hippos in the future. Kind
of why some of the activism of the Sierra Club is still kind of fucked up to this day.
Yeah. There's like, if you are an environmentalist and you are a conservationist, inevitably you're going to be standing shoulder to shoulder with somebody who probably butchered a deer.
Yeah.
Like, within the last 48 hours. It's just because they're like, yeah, we love killing out here. Beautiful. Great.
Or you're opposing a solar farm because it ruins some views.
They do that. Birders are big on that too, man. Birders are insane, and they'll be like, the solar farm interferes with the migratory pattern of this bird.
Yeah, you know what else interferes with the migratory patterns of birds? Fucking climate change.
True.
And hunters.
Well, yeah.
And cats.
And cats. But the thing that they don't tell you is that in 49, 50, 51, there's this whole series. Before this, there's very much no ability to enforce anything that happens. I'm going to bring in someone everyone on this podcast loves, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan made his bones playing, among other characters, George Gipp in the Newt Rockne story. George Gipp was a star football player at Notre Dame. Notre Dame did not really require him to attend class. George Gipp spent most of his time taking money and playing pool in South Bend.
Win one,
all right,
for the Gipper.
That sounds
correct.
Dope.
This is where he got the name. That story is also pretty much bullshit, like every other Newt Rockne story. Newt Rockne was just a grandiose bullshit artist. At one point, he inspired the team on a road trip, saying, "My son's at home and he's ill, and we don't know if he's going to make it. So if you could just go out there and win one for the boy, that'd be great." And the players were stunned to see the boy run up perfectly healthy at the train station when they got back after the win. Like, that's the entire myth of Notre Dame is founded on a gigantic pile of bullshit. And atop that is George Gipp being like this great student athlete, who died a martyr for the cause, when in fact he probably died of, some sort of peritonitis or other thing people drop like flies of in the 20s, right? Like just, mysterious ailment of some sort. And he played pool for most of his time at Notre Dame. So there was really no way to stop that from happening, or no way to sort of take this code of amateurism and put any teeth to it. The first attempt at that's called the Sanity Code in 1949. The Sanity Code is resisted by 7 schools, 6 of whom aren't even good at football. They're just stubborn. They just don't give a shit. And they're like, no, don't tell us what to do. And those 7 schools are
to the Joker, the sanity code is the insanity code.
I just want to say, saying that the founding myth of Notre Dame is a steaming pile of bullshit is a hell of an accusation against our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Touchdown Jesus, baby. Touchdown Jesus, baby. You ever been to Notre Dame? That fucking campus is wild, dude. Those kids party their noses clean off their face, and it's sort of a matter of how are you even getting this much cocaine? We're in West Bend, Indiana, dude.
Chicago, baby. Chicago.
Yeah.
Go Bears.
That's where they're getting it.
Bears.
So those 7 schools, collectively, the NCAA, the schools get together. They fail to expel them. It's largely a failure. However, it's the beginning of sort of an attempt to codify everything. And that's kind of where Walter Byers comes in.
Right. We have where did I put the fucking slides? There it is. Walter Byers, who we'll get to, creates basically goes around the NCAA's 168 members and creates the infractions committee sort of out of whole cloth. You can think of this as how the Supreme Court legitimized itself through judicial review, but shittier.
Marbury versus Madison.
Yeah. So we should explain this picture of Elijah Moore peeing like a dog before we go into the next slide.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what was up with this.
Because we've just had this up for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the shortest route from A to B here. That is
Raj
the University of Mississippi.
Raj just dropped off.
God damn it, dude.
All right, we all have keep talking. We all have our locals. Hopefully he can rejoin.
Okay. So
is this the dagger?
That is Elijah Moore in the Thanksgiving 2019 Egg Bowl. That is the annual rivalry game played between Ole Miss and Mississippi State, called the Egg Bowl because they played for the Egg Bowl. Okay,
the Egg Bowl.
A game mostly known for both teams absolutely kneecapping each other's last hope at having a successful season. If Mississippi as a state had one team, they'd be the greatest football state in the Southeast. They split their talent between 2 teams and therefore are always kind of around 500 and always trying to ruin each other's season by taking the other under 500. It's a great game because nothing is on the line and yet everything's super important. And also they play for a giant egg. And there's a history of like nasty fights and brawls and skullduggery surrounding the game. It's one of my favorites. So in this game, Elijah Moore on this play scores. All right. At this point, they are about to kick an extra point to tie. However, by imitating a peeing dog, because the mascot of Mississippi State are the Bulldogs, he receives an unsportsmanlike conduct on the play. They move the extra point back 15 yards, and Ole Miss, in classic Egg Bowl fashion, destroys their own hopes by missing the extra point and losing. This gets the egg. Yes. So this, by the way, this play, as silly as it is, fortunately has no impact on the pro prospects for Elijah Moore, who's the successful NFL player. It did get Ole Miss's coach fired. All right,
Matt Luke had it coming.
State. Yes, he did have it coming. He gets fired. In addition to that, Matt Luke gets fired. Mississippi State goes to a bowl game, which they lose in embarrassing fashion, and Mississippi State's coach gets fired. So both coaches in this game end up getting fired as a direct and indirect result of this game. Yeah,
sort of a suicide bombing. This is very familiar to me as like someone who is aware of sports in Scotland and aware of the Scottish Premier League.
This is pure Scottish soccer, like at its finest. There's a lot of parallels between like soccer in the Great British Isles and college football, especially in the sense that it's never a sport where you're going to have a whole lot of parity, but you're going to have a whole lot of people who care about the 312th best team on the island. Like the people who care about the smallest pub team absolutely ride like hell for them. So there's a lot of similarities there. But yeah, that's who we've been looking at this whole time. We've been looking at Elijah Moore peeing and losing the game for Ole Miss.
He just finished the recording. He's back in.
Hello,
Justin.
I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah,
you didn't get killed by a tornado.
No, it's probably a couple minutes off.
That's actually perfect because we just wrapped the Elijah Moore slide. So also Spencer, I should disclose this to you. I am an Ole Miss fan. For
That's
reasons
fine.
Sort of unbeknownst to me. I'm gonna shut my window real quick. Hang on.
All right, we're back.
Okay, yeah, we just
One thing
finished that.
I really hate is when we're promised like an apocalyptic storm, and instead of it killing me, it's just inconvenient.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never been in the eye of a tornado. I imagine it might be quite
So
inconvenient.
I was in. Have you been in a tornado?
No, never.
Yes,
couple when I
like
was
an
young.
F2, yes, but
Yeah.
So I was in the Georgia Dome here in Atlanta when a tornado hit it.
Oof.
Nice.
Yeah, I do, and I was next to, of all people, I was next to Vern Lundquist, who was an announcer for CBS Sports. So I got to hear in this great stentorian announcer's voice that I'm used to hearing, like from three, right? Like I usually
Yeah,
hear
for
that
sure.
from Vern, or he called the Masters, right? Like, oh, beautiful putt. So I hear next to me, I hear Vern go, "What the fucking shit is that?"
Oh, he called the fucking Iron Bowl, right? He called the kick six.
That was. Oh God, let me think about who was on that call. It should have been Vern and Gary. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. That's
There are no flags. Yeah, that's Gary.
that
that's
and the Manziel Heisman game against Bama.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This is now just a sports pod, a sports
Yeah, this has
casting
been
podcast.
a soft coup.
Yeah.
Yes. Roz, we can go to the next slide whenever you're ready, bud.
I'm on the next slide. This is the one where I had to put a white box
Yeah.
around your
Graphic
graphic.
design
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
my passion.
Yeah. Let's talk about just real quick how the NCAA works. There are 3 divisions. It's worth noting that the NCAA is not the only governing body for collegiate sports in the United States, but it is by far the biggest. There's also the NAIA, and there's some weird psychotic Protestant ones for like just Baptist colleges no one's ever heard of, dude. So real quick, D1 are schools you've heard of. D2 are like, at least here in Pennsylvania, are state universities, Kutztown, Westchester, so on and so forth, are D2. D3 are usually small schools, but shit can get weird there. Like MIT is a D3 school. The University of Chicago, so they still offer athletics.
Schools that are making a point not to have a credible sports program.
Which is weird because MIT fields the most sports teams of any, at least that was true a few years ago, of any college in the United States.
Yeah, but they want to be like, oh, we're not jocks. You know?
Yeah.
Ew.
Isn't like rowing not covered under the NCAA? Or
Rowing's covered.
Am I thinking? Am I making that up?
I believe
rowing is like the oldest associated sport in the United States. Is rowing.
Harvard tried to hire a coxswain who did not. One of the given needs in the NCAA propaganda piece I read earlier was that Harvard basically tried to hire a coxswain who was not affiliated with the school in any manner whatsoever, and Yale got their feelings hurt about it.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I would definitely get mad about that.
D1 and D2 can offer athletic scholarships. D3 can't. I
enjoy a Division 3 team. I enjoy, the wittier poets or like the fighting reverends or whatever the fuck little school with its little mascot.
Had
the Drexel Techman.
Yeah, Drexel's D1. We don't deserve
Drexel is D1, and it shouldn't be.
NCAA tournament twice in the last 40 years, I think.
I'm a big D2 guy because that's where you get like Pittsburgh State, the Gorillas. It's my favorite mascot.
I love those.
I'm just looking here. I already had list of NCAA Division 3 institutions open on my phone from when I was previously looking these guys up. I love to think about like Agnes Scott College Scotties or whatever, you know?
Oh yeah, that's here in Atlanta. Yeah, that's
I wouldn't watch any of the games, but I love to think about them. I love to like be aware of the existence of the Eureka College Red Devils.
There is something deeply satisfying about throwing on like a D3 football game on like ESPN 12 or whatever, and just watching these two Baptist colleges you've never fucking heard of like try to run each other into the ground. Absolutely spectacular.
That's where this is where if you check box scores and you just sort for highest score, that's where you find good ones, because inevitably some D3 team that gives a shit about football will play a D3 team that recently discovered the sport of football, like in the parking lot before the game, and you'll see that the final score is like 123 to -5.
There's I forget who it is. It might be Grinnell College. I forget where they are, Alice, that you'll appreciate, because they figured out before anyone else that you could just jack threes constantly and never rebound the basketball.
That's right.
Perfect.
And they would score like 180 points a game.
We've hacked basketball. We've hacked sports.
Yeah, well, if the Warriors can do it, Grinnell College can do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
D1, like I said, I did not look up the specific difference. I believe D2 schools are limited by how many scholarships, athletic scholarships specifically, they can offer. D1 is where we're going to be addressing our grievances today.
Because it's where all this stuff happens, right?
Well, it's the most nationally circulating psychotic shit.
It's where the money. It's where the money is. The TV. Yeah. That's where the TV money is.
Right. So D3 can't offer athletic scholarships at all.
At all.
Okay. So yeah. I always found I was taught as a child, Washington and Lee doesn't offer athletic scholarships as a point of pride.
No, they're
a D3 school.
They'd be sanctioned.
Oh, well. Okay.
You know who else is in D3 and of the NAACP? The
NAACP.
I'm tired as shit.
Alice is out here doing colorism.
That's right. No, in Division 3 of the NCAA, you also have the United States Coast Guard Academy. Go Bears!
Yeah.
I almost got beaten up by a guy who played football at the United States Coast Guard.
Wow.
Yeah, he told me to show up at the parking lot after high school, and I pulled the cunning move of not doing that.
Sort of hardest Coast Guardsman to outwit. The U.S. Merchant Marine Academy also.
Hey, I know a guy who went there.
Huh.
Also, Ross, if it makes you feel better, MIT offers D1 women's rowing because there are certain exemptions for D3 schools to be allowed to field one sport in D1.
That's weird. Why can't you just have? What if one team is like really good?
That's what they do.
What if more than one team is really good?
Fuck them.
Too bad.
Yeah, you gotta pick one.
Yeah, exactly.
Choose your favorite
we have two teams that are really good, and we just have one that's D1, and the other one has won every single D3 event it's been in.
Yeah, that's athletics. The Washington and Lee Generals.
Yeah.
Oh, this is cool. Athletic exclusion was manifest in the early 20th century when the school forced Rutgers to sit out African-American football player Paul Robeson for a 1916 game, and later forfeited a 1923 game when Washington and Jefferson refused to comply with a similar demand. Hell yeah. W&L, baby.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, do we have the next slide, please? Let's talk about how Walter fucking Byers ruined America.
This is a 1970s man.
Yes.
I just hate this piece of shit so much.
I kind of want these microphones though. They look cool.
All right. So Walter fucking Byers is hired by the NCAA at 30 years old.
The guy behind him's chin ass is obscene.
Yes.
They don't make chin ass like that anymore.
Chins like that anymore.
Well, not since I had fillers.
Oh, Alice. He's a journalism school dropout, further proving that no good can come of journalism school. He centralizes power sort of out of whole cloth as a result of two scandals. William and Mary, in an doomed effort to compete with the big boy. William and Mary, for those of you who don't know, is the worst university in the United States. Everyone who goes there is a terrible person. Williamsburg sucks. Burn it to the ground. Now,
highest suicide rate of any college.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's they think they're Harvard, but you live in Virginia, so who loses?
But you can go to Busch Gardens really easily.
Busch Gardens is nice, dude. I like Alpengeist.
Yeah, I like Busch Gardens.
Isn't that the one that killed a kid? No, that's a Schlitterbahn. Excuse me.
No, this is another German-themed amusement park.
How many fucking German? I don't
no,
associate the Germans with amusement.
Only part of it is German-themed. There's actually several country themes in Busch Gardens.
There's Busch Gardens Tampa as well. That's the Busch Gardens of my high school days in Tampa, where people were constantly falling out of the sky cab that went over, the little sort of cable car that went over, and falling into animal habitats.
That's funny.
That keeps happening at Disney too. It just keeps getting stuck.
Dude, just don't put a theme park in Florida. They keep doing it. Just don't.
Oh my God,
Ron DeSantis,
my
you
kid
son of a bitch.
I didn't watch my kid and he got eaten by an alligator. How could the park do this to me? That's your own damn fault.
So sick of white men's entitlement.
They built a little statue for him, though.
That a kid got eaten by a gator because his daddy didn't know how to read signs.
That tweet was right, and I agree with it.
Oh my God. I'm kind of like, yeah, man, we should have never inhabited Florida.
Go off, King.
If you're in gator territory, watch your fucking kids. It's your own damn fault. The gator is just doing what it's designed to do. My God.
And there are so many. Listen, I don't trust my kids around the people in Florida. Why am I going to take chances with the alligator?
Yeah, they're like 17 feet long. They weigh 1 million pounds. They eat like a cow for lunch. My God.
They're pretty chill, actually.
Yeah.
Like I'll speak on behalf of the gator here. That like that gator does not represent the gator community by eating a child. That is not common gator behavior.
As long as they're full, they're pretty chill. But if they're hungry, oh my God, stay away.
Now, whomst among us, you know?
That's a good point, yeah.
Well, we've
just human nature.
Keep in mind. Yeah, keep in mind, this is a state where people will try to ride manatees, which is totally illegal, by the way, but people will try to like jump on a manatee. Like that, yeah.
Curse state. So Walter fucking Byers, there's also a point. So I didn't explain the W&M scandal because I was too busy insulting them. They just lied about grades because they thought they could be the next great American football program for reasons unbeknownst to me. Like anyone would want to go live in Williamsburg, Virginia.
By the way, William and Mary has a unique situation where the acronym takes longer to say than the name.
W&M.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Fuck. Yeah, so like, you've got to be getting a degree while you play football, right? But actually getting the degree impedes your ability to play football. So they just
have you considered majoring in general studies?
Criminal justice. Criminal justice. There's a lot of, because you got to be at film and practice from 2 to 6, 2 to 7. How are you going to attend any of those afternoon classes that liberal arts majors book because they're waking up at 11? Yeah, it's not going to happen.
So there's also a point shaving scandal where basically teams are underperforming on purpose to meet basically throwing games, essentially, or not necessarily throwing, but scoring less so that they do or do not cover the spread. The Walter fucking Byers impanels the fractions committee to punish schools without sort of waiting for the consensus of the NCAA's member schools. He outlaws televised games in 1951, 161 to 7. The fear,
football Stalin.
The fear was that basically televised games would ruin the sport because they wouldn't get box office revenues that they depended upon. And we're gonna see why that's stupid later. But two of the notable holdouts, Notre Dame and Penn. Basically Penn because they didn't want to be told what to do, and Notre Dame because Notre Dame.
That's the University of Pennsylvania, right?
What did I say?
You said Penn.
Yeah, that's University of Pennsylvania.
Okay, because some of our viewership listenership might think you mean Penn State.
Fuck Penn State. No, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good.
We'll get to them. Walter Byers actually comes around in 1987 or so because he realizes that the NCAA is a scam cartel. Next slide, please.
Yeah, comes around, by the way, maybe understates that. The exact words Walter Byers uses when he is speaking at the Kansas City Sports Commission in 1987 is, and I can attribute that to, quite frankly, the neo-plantation mentality that exists on the campuses of our country. The coach owns the athlete's feet, the college owns the athlete's body, and the athlete's mind is supposed to comprehend a rule book that I challenge Dave Burst, who's sitting in this audience, to explain in rational terms to you inside of 8 hours. So it was a late come around, but a hard one.
Liam, did you want the drop now?
Yes, please.
It's now about 9:30 and time for the dump. The first dump of the day.
So, I am someone who attended both of these schools. Neither of these schools deserves to have a football program. There's no reason for Rutgers to be at the Big Ten. So, football. There are massive broadcasting restrictions because Walter Byer hated American excellence. There's one televised NCAA game per week, the game of the week. So by negotiating television rights, Walter Byers makes the NCAA incredibly wealthy. In fact, the contract was richer than the contract signed for the NFL around the same era. In 1961, there's a carve out for college football, and the NFL's granted antitrust exemption. And we'll skip ahead to 1981, where the schools go rogue, baby. 61 schools in 1981 threatened to go rogue and sign a deal with NBC for $180 million. Walter fucking Byers, basically says, okay, well, we're just going to impose sanctions on you like we did last time. And
this is fucking like international geopolitics for football.
Yeah. Right. They basically threatened to impose sanctions, and Georgia and Oklahoma file an antitrust suit.
Again, coordinated cruise missile strikes on Oklahoma.
Yeah, listen, we could all normally could be wiped off the face of the earth tomorrow and no one would miss it. Go Pokes.
Not Stillwater, brother. Not Stillwater. That's good, clean living out there.
That's why I said go Pokes.
They wear boots with shorts. Okay, it's like the best look ever.
It's up there with gym shorts and a hoodie.
Hey.
Yeah, incredible.
Hey.
With the Fetterman.
Hey, you motherfucker.
Yeah. The Liam.
That's 98%. Yeah. It's a polo and it is a polo and shorts usually because I am my father's son.
Oh, that's what my dad does as well.
Yeah, I know. I've met your dad.
Yeah.
Hi, Dan.
I'm so glad I got out of the male gender before I had to surrender to the polo shirt.
I don't know.
It comes for every man eventually, and I'm so glad I was able to dodge that particular bullet.
The southern variation of that is the fishing shirt. Yeah, the fishing shirt, which is got the vent. A fishing shirt has short sleeves. It's a button down all the way, but it's got vents in it for breathing and ventilation, right?
Okay.
Because it implies that unlike some sort of soft dude who never goes outside, at any moment you could spring to action, reeling in a largemouth bass. It could happen.
Ready to tactically interdict to fish.
I spend only 90% of my time asleep in a chair as opposed to 100% of the time.
Correct.
All right. So, sorry, I was just sending a text because that's what I do on this podcast is I just text. So they win.
Texting while podcasting is dangerous, Liam.
I'm going to pee in your mouth.
It's distracted podcasting.
They win the antitrust suit. And as a result of that, in football, at least, the schools are free to negotiate rights on their own, basically, or
the
as a member.
The markets, the freer the people.
Yeah, it's gonna get way worse. Don't worry. As a result of this, the NCAA becomes ever more reliant on basketball money, specifically March Madness. The men's Division I basketball tournament takes place in March and April because the NCAA exists in this weird space where they can sort of punish football teams but don't really regulate it. Spencer, if you want to speak more to that, you know more than I do on sort of the depth of which they can do.
Yeah, this is a very important point that should be made at this exact point in the story of the NCAA. One, remember, when we talk about the NCAA, increasingly the NCAA is used as a tool by the schools to divest capital from labor. That's big point one here. Okay, they use the NCAA as a shield, and a useful one, for continuing to operate businesses under the aegis of a university without actually doing any of the sort of work that you would have to do, right, in order to pay the labor. So that's one thing that's happening here. All right, the NCAA is a scapegoat. They're wretched. I hate them. I don't think they should exist. They have no reason or rationale to exist. Something which is a matter of congressional record. At one point, the Miles Brand, who was head of the NCAA, was so vague in his testimony about what the NCAA did that Congress reminded him he was under oath, which is what they do. Which is what they do seconds before charging you with contempt.
Just like a bunch of mob guys just going up here and being like, "Listen, the NCAA, I plead the fifth." On the grounds that my answer might tend to incriminate me.
When they asked him, "What do you do?"
business.
He had no answer.
Sanitation business.
I'm in. We do the basketball.
Yeah, and then
I'm in
at
the
this point,
sports business.
We're in the business of facilitating the movement of balls through hoops.
that's what I do. I work in turnovers. The other thing that happens here, football revenue-wise, is not the NCAA's primary business, but it is where oftentimes they have the biggest footprint in enforcement. The NCAA becomes increasingly dependent on basketball at this point. And if you'll notice, there is a sudden spike in the investment into the branding and development of the NCAA men's basketball tournament, aka March Madness. The 80s are when you see them get their own theme song, right? One Shining Moment. Easily the worst fucking sports song I have ever heard in my life. It sounds bad. It sounds like a man 3 seconds away from kicking the chair out from under him. That's what it sounds like. It is the most depressing song. It sucks. I don't really care that they got Luther Vandross and Teddy Pendergrass and Jennifer Hudson to sing it. They're all wonderful people singing a shit song. Fuck that song. But that should be like, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, where does football fit into this? Football is the biggest sport in America, and it is the forward-facing sport for college athletics. College basketball is essentially simmer, comes to a boil for about 3 weeks, and then kind of drifts off into the background. College football is a year-round thing. It is the only thing that even begins to put a toe on the gigantic footprint of the NFL in the United States. So it's the thing that the NCAA, by enforcement, has a lot to hold over, but actually doesn't make any money off of. It's like this weird dichotomy or paradox in the middle of this, that you have this thing that they have a lot of impact on in terms of regulating it, but they really don't make any money off it.
So if this was a railroad, then they would be trying to like abandon that track then.
Yeah. It's they essentially pay for the railroad bulls on that track, but receive none of the fares, pass-throughs, or commerce.
They've become a police.
Sorry, I need a train explanation.
They've become a police department without civil forfeiture.
Correct.
Yeah.
Next slide, please.
I don't know if you heard on my audio, but we just came out the other side of the severe thunderstorm, and immediately the Mr. Softy van went by.
That's a real first responder, right?
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Scared money don't make money.
Got to get the ice cream truck out immediately.
A thin raspberry ripple line.
Riding that lonely rocky road.
Very good. So here's Cardale Jones, who used to be a quarterback at Ohio State, saying probably the taking the facade off pretty quick.
Saying the quiet part very loud, complete with caps lock.
Yeah.
Yes.
We ain't come here to play school. I like that.
Yeah. It's worth noting that he actually goes back to school for his fourth year, becomes a fourth-round pick, and washes out of the league, but who cares? This is a bonus. That's the Ohio State.
Dude, Cardale Jones is cool because he had no starting experience. He popped in. He won like 4 games to win a national championship, sent a couple of fire tweets, went to the NFL, got his bonus, washed out, and now he just hangs out. And also, I should mention, Cardell Jones played a kid during a hospital visit. So I don't know if you have seen the old Chappelle show, but at one point he's playing a kid on a Make-A-Wish trip in like 2K. So he's playing basketball with him on like a PlayStation, and he's like, Timmy dies and he passes out, but then he revives. He's like, get back, take your whooping, because he's beating this kid in the hospital by like 80 points. And you go like, yeah, nobody would really do that, right? And Cardell Jones, and I'm going to quote from the tweet, man, I wish everyone stopped saying I beat a kid in the hospital 91-35 in football. It was 98-35, had 91 with 126 left to go in the fourth. So he really did he visited a kid in the hospital, play video games, and beat that kid 91-35. Yeah.
Apparently he now plays in the CFL. Yeah, me too, man.
Love Cardale.
Plays for the Edmonton Elks now. So let's talk about Spencer hit on it earlier, but we'll talk about the student athlete defense the NCAA trots out, which is sort of the central point is that they're students, they're athletes, they're not workers, they're not employees, they're not professionals, they're sort of gentlemen scholars here to represent their universities. Right. And we're gonna take that mask off real quick. So
they're there to learn general studies.
Yeah. I mean, you get like one or two guys who like have a serious major and are also good at football, but like mostly it's like
you get like a Josh Rosen or someone or like an Andrew Luck, but
yeah, or Nakobe Dean, who was drafted by the Eagles this year from UG. Yeah, he was drafted by the Eagles at Georgia, and this is a real rarity. He's like, I think, in chemical engineering as a major. Like, he has a crazy difficult major that he could have gone to rival Georgia Tech to do and did not. So like, there are people who
that's the one you do if you want to have a secondary career option of going to work for a petrochemical company.
So mechanical engineering. So no, he unfortunately did not select the lucrative and evil.
The mechanical engineering option is also very lucrative. Speaking as the guy who took the dumb engineering.
Yeah, you did. But now you host a podcast. Okay.
I don't want to see things moving.
No, not as a simple engineer.
Just jump scaring you with that like pamphlet, Simple Machines and How They Work. This is called a lever. It's like, oh fuck, shit.
No, take it away.
I wish no more of this.
You're just looking at erosion like, oh, slow down, Jock. Slow down, baby.
Someone balance the forces, please.
It's supposed to stay still.
Why is it moving? So on October 26, 1974, Alabama plays.
There's a date.
Alabama plays Texas Christian University. Death to the Horned Frogs. Death to Bama while we're at it. Texas Christian University running back Kent Waldrep is paralyzed on a sweep play, basically just tackled into nothingness.
Just entire spine just crushed into powdered sugar.
Yes, he is paralyzed from the neck down.
Oof.
TCU pays his medical bills for 9 months and then basically says, "There's the door." His family relies on charity, and in the 90s, he basically files for workman's comp, and in 2000, an appeals court rules he is not an employee because he had not paid taxes on financial aid. So
what?
Yes,
but those two. Explain to me how those two things are related. Like,
go ahead.
If I I don't know, if I'm taking money out of the till at the store that I work at, I don't not have worked there. Like, even if they fired me, I was still an employee. Why the fuck does that invalidate? What?
Especially if they said you could take the money out of the till.
Yeah, no kidding. This is like manifestly unjust. That's monstrous. I shouldn't be surprised, but like, Jesus.
Welcome to the American court system.
Yeah. Now you know why I dropped out of doing a law degree, is it facilitates shit like this, whatever country, whatever legal system you're in.
Yeah. So we get that. Cam Newton's dad I should back up here. Cam Newton is now a professional quarterback who was highly recruited coming out of junior college. Supposedly, his dad basically requested from the university that recruited him $180,000 payment. And was it like days before the Iron Bowl, Spencer, it came out that this had happened, but supposedly neither Cam Newton or Auburn had known that it had happened, so he could play anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Essentially, Cecil, who had committed Cam to the University of Florida only to watch Tim Tebow take the starting spot and not relinquish it. Cam left, and when he went to Blinn College, which was a junior college for a year, Cecil essentially said the next one won't be free, because Cecil was on to the notion that this is a vast free market and you should command the price that you deserve. And he said, we need $180K. None of this is verified by anyone, but all of it is accepted as biblical truth. Because
much
Cam
like
would
real
candidly
biblical
deny
truth
it when asked about it. Yes, exactly. And it came down between Mississippi State and Auburn. He chose Auburn. Mississippi State ratted him out for this. An investigation that yielded absolutely no evidence whatsoever ensued. This is because, my favorite thing, the NCAA are not real cops. They might try to imitate them, which they have on several occasions, like when during one investigation, an actual lawyer who was talking to somebody and deposing them left the room. The NCAA investigator came in and acted like they were part of the deposition and a binding deposition under law when they were not.
That's
and this invalidated
so fucking illegal.
And just started to ask questions with great gravity and seriousness, like they were part of the investigation. They try that stuff, but ultimately they have no method of enforcement. They're relying on people being rats. That's what they have to do. And it just so happens that if you have an airtight situation, you won't ever know if a player took money. You won't even know what the actual sort of payment was, and it'll just be referred to cheekily later. Cam Newton, you can go search, like, there's this great gif of him that's used sometimes, which is him saying, "Hey, I can't say anything. It's an ongoing investigation." That didn't stop Alabama, by the way, from playing take the money and run when he took the field at the Iron Bowl, which Cam Newton, by the way, led a magnificent second half comeback to beat Alabama that year. So well done,
and the
y'all.
PA announcer got fired for it.
No fun allowed.
Yeah, it's yeah. So another example, AJ Green, who played at Georgia or Georgia Tech, Georgia, right?
Georgia.
Sold his own jersey from a bowl game to pay for a spring break vacation, right? Receives a 4-game suspension for doing so. Meanwhile, the University of Georgia bookstore will sell you his jersey for $40. We're going to get into name, image, and likeness and how the NCAA fought for years to prohibit players from profiting off their own likeness or, sign endorsement deals, anything like that. And because the tide is changing, was more or less manhandled into doing it. So there's, NCAA bylaws basically prohibited for a while, like, players from talking to agents, or not players from talking to agents, but agents negotiating on behalf of players, specifically in baseball. And then the NCAA, you'll file a suit because you can be expelled, and the NCAA basically just buries you in paper fees, in paperwork, and you settle. So what are the kids supposed to do? Now they're being exploited by agents, they're being exploited by the schools, they're being exploited, by the athletic departments, and this is all about fucking money. Up until I believe 2012, the NCAA, due to a 1973 rule, would only allow schools to offer 1-year sort of renewable athletic scholarship. That changed in 2012, and now in football, at least, certain schools can offer 4-year scholarships. That's not true, I believe, of any other sport. And there's this other thing that I want to talk about. where we sort of look down on players, certainly in the media, where we talk about the transfer portal, and we'll get to the transfer portal, but we really scapegoat these players who are doing the best they can to expand their opportunities and get the money they deserve to be paid for their labor. And I just want to, talk about how ridiculous that is. I want to point out that when the move was before the move was announced to altering certain multi-year scholarships, the NCAA contended that an athletic scholarship was a merit award that should be reviewed annually, presumably because the degree of merit could change. Lawyers for the Justice Department suggested that a free market in scholarships would expand learning opportunities in accord with the stated rationale for the NCAA's tax-exempt status. They are, in fact, tax-exempt, that it promotes education through athletics. So this whole thing's a fucking scam is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, because if you have like a 1 year, if you have a 1 year scholarship, then they can just sort of whip the rug out from under you, right?
Which happens, yeah. People got cut, people got injured. A player,
we might quietly urge you. We might pressure you to leave. We might just say, "Hey, son, I don't think it's working out for you," and put you on third string.
I enjoyed my major and wanted to do better in it, so I reduced the amount of time I spent playing football.
So what I did was I transferred to Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
I mean, there are many ways. I read a statistic, it's old now, that 22% of Division I scholarships, athletic scholarships, didn't get renewed. So if you committed to, and coaches move all the time, and a new coach might want to bring his new guys in that he's recruited. So where the fuck are you supposed to go? Especially, let's say you're a junior, and you've had playing time, maybe your second string, maybe your first string, but now you have to go find a whole new fucking program, and that's gonna drop your draft stock unless you're like a guaranteed starter at Alabama or something.
You got 3/4 of a degree, and you got to try and transfer it to another college. My God,
assuming you're even allowed.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of insane draconian rules,
and you would have to sit out a year.
Right.
It used to be like when you transferred, you'd have to sit out an entire year.
Isn't the whole thing with football that you have like, a very small number of years to be able to do it before you're just fried?
Well, yes, Alice.
Before your body falls apart. Yeah.
That's not an accident. All right, we're going to take a diversion here. Spencer, you want to tell the SMU story? Next slide, please.
Yeah, it's a big turning point in amateur athletics, I think, because first of all, what you are looking at in this slide is absolutely fucking glorious. And what you are seeing that is correct. That is a gold Trans Am.
Oh yeah.
That is a 1979 gold Trans Am with the Firebird on the hood and the T-top. It is, and
nice.
That is just an American badassness, like like just a terrible car, but looks really, really awesome. It's real loud. You can smell the exhaust the minute that you hit the gas pedal anywhere in the car at any time. It's awesome, and it comes with its own light copy of Van Halen's Diver Down, just right in the cassette deck.
Good for running blocker for several hundred cases of Coors that you're running across state lines.
It's actually designed for that.
Yes.
Right. And you can also change out of a wedding dress in the passenger seat effortlessly.
It's unfortunate that they started selling Coors east of the Mississippi because there's no reason for this car anymore.
It's like a sort of lost art form. Yeah.
It was made for two things. It was made for purchasing football players because this Trans Am turned up as a key element in the Southern Methodist University football scandal. Because the whole time we're discussing this, maybe you're thinking, well, why didn't you just pay people and shut up about it? What if you actually just established a payroll and just said, fuck the NCAA? Enter Southern Methodist University football.
Go Mustangs, baby.
Wow. Are we going to hear that they were more ethical than anyone else?
Yes, because they got rid of the fucking facade, man.
And that's why it's a scandal.
So in true Texas fashion, this was spearheaded by, among other people, a dude with a dealership, a 30-year-old entrepreneur and dealership owner Sherwood Blunt, who, along with a big core of Texas boosters, just decided, yeehaw, we're going to do this. And they just started paying players. And consequently, SMU became awesome at football and started to attract talent like Eric Dickerson, and started to do so shamelessly that other people started to complain. This is all part, by the way, of the Southwest Conference, my favorite conference in all of athletic history in college sports, because they all did this. Like the Southwest Conference was one big Texan, like, yeehaw, where's my checkbook? Like, just people paying for players, and like all of these sort of weird internecine squabbles over talent and bribing people, and just everything that you want out of college sports in the best scandalous sort. That's the Southwest Conference. But anyway, SMU does this. They get real good. When they are eventually caught, okay, which is always going to happen because somebody gets disgruntled when the payroll doesn't come through or when they need money. When SMU gets caught, my favorite thing, when they get caught, they go to the administration, okay, and in a series of communications, which eventually involves a former governor of Texas, okay, being on board with all of this. It's one of the ways they get caught. I'm simplifying the story because it would take an hour to really explain it. If you want, you should watch the ESPN documentary Pony Excess, which is great because it kind of tisks a little bit at it, but it's so cool that you're just like, yeah, go ponies. This is awesome. But when they get caught, the guys behind it are like, hey, listen, you just can't stop this now. We've got a payroll to support. Like, we gotta make payroll.
we gotta make payroll, bitches.
They're like we got people who are expecting checks. You just can't get us to stop. You got to give us a couple of months. Which I love that these guys who are businessmen who would probably shutter things overnight for their own convenience without sending out checks were like, no, SMU football special. Give us a couple of months to wind these checks down. Send out some separation packages, if you will. Yeah. The great irony in all of this is that the gold Trans Am became a symbol of SMU's, corruption and decadence and the otherwise pure scheme of college athletics. When in fact, that gold Trans Am was paid for by Texas A&M University boosters who got it for Dickerson, who then took it and went to SMU. SMU still uses that in recruiting materials today. They use it this year.
The handshake meme between the US military and college football and trying to recruit impressionable teenagers is
that is correct.
Cool car.
Yeah, except Eric Dickerson signed with like Canada, right? Like in this scenario, like he took the gold Trans Am when he got to the United States military.
Joined the Canadian forces with my Marines enlistment bonus.
That's right.
These are still the only ethical people we've heard of so far. Just paying the players.
It's a bunch of like Texas. It's the same fucking people who killed JFK, just incidentally running a football side hustle. And we're like, fuck yes, this rules.
There's no fun scandals anymore. We just got the last fun scandal we got was Hugh Freeze, former coach at the University of Mississippi. Now, is he still coaching at Liberty?
He's still at Liberty, yeah.
Using his university cell phone to pay for university credit card to pay for strippers.
What's
nothing.
wrong with that?
He was using his university cell phone to call escort services in Tampa, Florida. Yes.
What's wrong with that?
That sounds unwise, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Morally, criminally, whatever.
Yeah. This is all dependent, by the way, on snitching, because the guy who got those cell phone records requested was the coach that he got fired for. So, that guy ratted on him.
What I'm learning here is that the NCAA doesn't have a policy of deterring informants, which it should do. Like, informally, they should institute that. Yeah. I'm not going to suggest how they should do that. I'm just saying that there are plenty of examples of how you might deter people from informing.
I was about to say, if you really want to clamp down on whistleblowers, I know this guy. His name is Barack Obama.
So this is, by the way, a big turning point, because this is the last time that the NCAA ever trotted out something called the death penalty. And the death penalty means
they
that
want to be
following
cops so bad.
They want to be cops so bad. Following the 86
Same.
season, they canceled their 1987 season, like totally canceled it. And then were off TV. They couldn't play home games in the 1988 season. They didn't get back on the field in full until the 1989 season, where with a depleted roster, God, I love football so much. With a depleted roster, they had to play the Houston Cougars, who were running to run and shoot at the time and passing like 90 times a game. And in one of my favorite scores ever, Houston beat SMU 95-21. And we're
It's that Cardale Jones shit.
Yeah.
The death penalty is
Andre
just
Ware
1 year
for 500. Yeah, it was 1 year complete ban, and then with no scholarships, like they yank everything. So if you have existing scholarships, they honor them, but you miss like at least one full recruiting class, and then there's restrictions where you get like partials for another 3 or 4 years.
I'm just thinking like 1 year is a short amount of time to be dead.
Yeah, but it totally decimates a program.
Yeah, I'm thinking like
SMU sort of does.
It's the like career death penalty.
So it's not like
they didn't make a
not like Hot Black DeSacio from Hitchhiker's Guide, spending a year dead for tax reasons.
No. But they lost 95-21, and Andre Ware threw 517 yards in the first half. Like they didn't make a bowl game until 20 years later.
Wow.
Sort of ritual humiliation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also a point where they did that, and the consensus was we don't really want to do that to anyone anymore, because the schools, which are essentially, they're the backers of the NCAA, they decided, that's really uncool. We wouldn't like that to happen to us. And there's really no reason it can't, because who's to say we don't have a bunch of yeehaw boosters ready to Texas this thing up? Just start handing out cash.
So it's more like a nuclear deterrent, I guess.
Yeah. Sanctioning yourself because of how bad you want it.
No. Should we talk about self-imposed penalties as a way for them to get away from NCAA discipline, Spencer?
Oh, but self-imposed are great. You can actually self-impose a penalty and accept penalties, which are my favorite, which are taking games off the record books. So, for instance, if you went like 12-0 in a badass season, got all the glory, everything was awesome, and then they found out that one of your star players had someone else do their homework for them, then you can say, cool, why don't you just nullify those games? Why don't you just take them off the books? They didn't happen. They'll be like, we'll punish you by doing that. So they'll just say, you never won those games, even though you got to kick all that ass. And that ass is like, can't get unkicked.
That's
right.
That's an indulgence. That's an indulgence.
It's an indulgence. It's literally an indulgence. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm gonna do some penance that like suits me. Yeah.
Or they'll say you can't go to a bowl game. They'll say, okay, well, we won't go to a bowl game this year.
Right? You can't go to the egg.
Right. Or worse, they're like, we can't go to Shreveport. We can't go to like the Poulon Weed Eater Bowl. Like they'll say, and the players are like, oh no, we don't get to go to Frisco, Texas, and hang out in a strip mall and bowl. Yeah, that's
a real thing. That is a real thing. As a side note, there's a bowl they play in the Bahamas, simply called the Bahama Bowl, and I that is on my bucket list. Because I can't imagine, like, I think I want to do more than watch 2 6-6 teams no one gives a shit about just party in the Bahamas for a week, go there viciously hungover, get day drunk during the game, pass out, go party with a bunch of 19-year-olds.
A bowl is like an exhibition game? Clarify this for me. Okay.
Yes, it is. It is essentially an exhibition game. It used to be there were only like 10 of them. Now there are like 36 of them. And they started as junkets for places, right? Like Miami.
Yeah, you want to go to the Bahamas.
Yeah, it was, or like Miami. It was like, we'll invite people from Pennsylvania and California to come see Miami, a developing city on the move, on the cusp of becoming something big. Come by an Orange Grove. Like that's really kind of the like boosterism that was behind it. And now like you can just put a bowl game anywhere because ESPN will pay for it, and ESPN backs a lot of these TV only bowls. So the Bahamas Bowl used to be sponsored by one of the greatest sponsors of all time, Popeyes. And I remember they're showing it, and the wind is blowing like hell because it's the Bahamas, and so you can't pass the ball at all. And they show this like shot of, they're like, "Welcome to the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl," and Popeyes paid to have like 3 Soviet-sized flags that read Popeyes, like just waving over the stadium, right? And everybody's looking at it like, that's where I want to live. That's the world I want to believe in.
That rules.
Absolutely on the bucket list. All right, next slide, please.
There we go.
We got to talk about horrifying mascots, because this is my shit. This is the reason why I like a Division 3 program. Is because
I have bad news for you. Both of these schools are D1.
Shit. I still like D3 ones because they have also weird ones, but with lower budgets.
Yes.
So the idea of like a sports mascot is still a little bit foreign to me. Like British sports, some teams have them, but they're really not as big a deal as some of yours are.
Right.
And then
like Gritty, who does communism.
Oh yeah. No, remember that.
The Antifa mascot. The actual Antifa mascot is the Oregon Duck, because the Oregon Duck's whole bit is just kind of engaged in mildly to seriously antisocial behavior. So I did a whole story on this. The Oregon Duck, whoever puts it on, they put it on. They don't tell the other Oregon Duck handlers, who also play the duck at different points in the day, right? Because they take shifts. Mm-hmm. The duck does not tell anybody what they're going to do. So the duck just puts on the head.
The duck is an agent of chaos.
The duck is actually an anarchist, right? The duck is like, I'm just going to do my shit, and you guys are going to have to deal with it. So he just goes around like taking things from kids and like picking people up randomly.
Duck game.
I was about to make that joke.
Yeah, he's the best. The other bit of mascot things I have, the Michigan State Spartan. I know someone's had sex with the Michigan State Spartan hat on. Like one of the guys who played him was like, yeah, I totally like banged a chick in that.
Horrifying. Why does Purdue Pete have the cold, dead eyes of a killer?
You have to live in West Lafayette.
Yeah.
I fell into a hole of like researching Purdue Pete because I was so horrified by him, and I looked up all the different generations of the Purdue Pete suit, and each of them is it's like a different generation of horror movies, you know? They're all terrifying in very different ways. So the mascots have never been good, I would say.
I want to let's think about like Purdue Pete. What we're looking on this what we're looking at on the screen right now is a man wearing a mask of a man.
Yes, that's true. A larger man.
You could just be a
with
guy.
A hammer.
He's just a guy wearing a hat. That's all he is. He's a guy wearing a hat with a hammer. You don't need the mask. You could just have a guy.
Mm-hmm.
No, because then you wouldn't have the facial affect that he has, unless you had a guy with some kind of like major like megacephaly or something. You wouldn't have the same sort of effect that you have here. So it's got to be a man wearing a man hat.
It's just a man.
So I'm going to share it.
It's just a man.
I would not identify this as human looking at it. We also have a Dominican friar here.
Once again, baby, it's just a man.
No, it's a man in a costume. That is something not you or I are capable of comprehending.
This looks like an illustration of like a doomed peasant revolt, like with the flag. All of these guys got like crushed and like tortured with like red hot iron implements by the local lord minutes after this photo was taken.
Our college's mascot is a man with a 50% larger head, but otherwise the same proportions as a man.
Yes.
I will say Providence College, who wields Friar Dom. Their former mascot was a Dalmatian.
Friar Dom.
Implies the existence of a friar sub.
True.
Yes. They used to have Dalmatians. But then the Dalmatians all died, so we get Friar Dom.
What did they die of? Did he kill them?
I don't know. The Yahoo didn't say. Listen, Rick Pitino brings darkness to places.
They were also all killed by Friar Dom.
Now, this is not in the slides. I have shared 2 images for you. One, I have shared with you a mascot fight. This is when Ohio's mascot, the first one is when Ohio's mascot for real punched Ohio State's mascot in the face.
The big head acting like a crumple zone there.
Listen, it's one of the funniest images in college sports. The look on the Ohio, the look on the Ohio Bobcat's face is already real intense, right?
So the Bobcat is at least a buff furry, right?
Yeah.
This other guy, he's just, again, it's just a man.
This is a guy with a big head.
It's just a guy with a big head.
He's a poisonous nut. That is an anthropomorphic poisonous nut. I cannot think of a better metaphor for the entire state of Ohio than our mascot is an inedible nut. And by the way, he really fucked this dude up. Like that's a real fight. Like he punched him. This is the other reason I love the Oregon Duck. The Oregon Duck once beat the shit out of the Houston Cougar on TV. Like, for no reason. For no apparent reason.
And I see here the second picture is that also the Oregon Duck just being detained by 5 cops.
This is another legend. First of all, the man inside that outfit, which is Sebastian the Ibis from the University of Miami, the Hurricanes. The Ibis is their mascot because it's the first bird to come back after a hurricane. The Ibis, Sebastian in this case, is being played by a dude who is 30 years old during the heyday of the Miami Hurricanes, who just liked playing him. Sebastian was carried a toy AK-47 onto the field, and this is, by the way,
yes.
Yeah, he carried a toy AK-47. Oh, and this is during the height of like the Coke Wars in Miami, and he wore a camo jacket and carried a toy AK-47 onto the field. Sebastian also was engaged in several fights with other mascots, and this is him for real being ushered off the field and arrested by police after he attempted to burn a toy Oklahoma Sooner schooner, a wagon, on the field with real fire, and then and so they pushed him off the field. He also tried to put out Florida State's burning spear. Florida State puts a burning spear at midfield for every game. He tried to put that out with a fire extinguisher once. This isn't even my best story about him. Pre-game, Sebastian was hanging out on Bourbon Street in New Orleans and was shot in the Sebastian head.
I remember that Hitman level. Yeah,
and made the game. He made the game. He's like, flesh wound.
I love sports.
I tell you what, stupid things happen on Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
First time I was there, I thought a homeless guy was asking me for money, and it took me like 5 minutes to realize he was trying to sell me Coke.
You're just being handed like baggie after baggie of Coke, and you're just like, I don't want this.
No, sorry, I don't need this.
What's your returns policy? Yeah.
Oh, I love it. All right, back into the depressing bit.
Yes.
Next slide, please.
Damn, we were having fun.
Yeah, no more.
No.
So,
hail to the.
You can't say that anymore. They're the commanders.
We gotta beep it. We gotta beep it.
Yeah, we'll have to bleep it. Yeah.
Also, don't every time
Washington football team.
Every time you say it, Dan Snyder gets $10 more. Is that what you want? Do you want to make Dan Snyder richer, Roz? Because that's what you're doing right now. You're lining his pockets. This is Dexter Manley. He played professionally for the Washington Slurs, and
they should have called it that.
Just call it.
They should have renamed it the Washington Slurs.
I don't know how Cleveland got it so right, and then Washington
Dan Snyder,
was like,
dude.
Yeah,
Dan Snyder is how. He is famous for appearing at same. We'll link it. I have it in the notes, but Taylor Branch's article, "The Shame of College Sports," in front of the United States Senate Subcommittee on Education, Arts, and the Humanities in 1989. Dexter Manley says that he had been functionally illiterate in college while playing for Oklahoma State. Go Pokes! So let's talk about amateurism. Let's talk about some of the things schools do in order to basically push these kids to make a profit for the schools because they are to the universities. I can't think of a word other than asset that the school expects to get a return on. So in Georgia in the 80s, there is an employee by the name of Jan Kemp who refuses to inflate, I said games here, but inflate grades in her remedial English class. She's vilified by the university, who fires her.
Yeah, she's trying to take the football away.
Yes.
Right. She attempts suicide twice as a result of the scrutiny upon her. And I want to read an excerpt. It's just a sentence, but I want. This is what the university's mentality is, and this is the University of Georgia's defense lawyer talking in a court about how they see their kids. We may not make a university student out of him. But if we can teach him to read and write, maybe he can work at the post office rather than as a garbage man when he gets through with his athletic career. So that's how they fucking talk about the black kids they're exploiting for money.
2 good union jobs. Well, actually, no. There's a lot of garbage men who aren't union. Yeah.
But I want to talk about that. I don't have a slide dedicated to racial inequity, but I want to talk about that specifically.
In all of the fucking slides is the thing.
Right, exactly. But I want to take a second here and talk about that. Like, this is how these universities work. These kids are assets that you get a return on. They are not students. They're not even really human to these fucking schools. We should say that, explicitly.
The way that they make it like sound like an act of charity.
Yes.
Is the thing that really fucking gets me. Is like, oh, we're doing these kids a favor, actually.
Yes.
And you're not even we're not even Michael Lewis in The Blind Side, which is the story of Mike Oher, a kid basically pulled off the street to play at Ole Miss, who had spent most of his childhood surfing couches and living hungry on the streets. Michael Lewis makes a great point in that book where he says, even the connective tissue of privilege that you get sewn into at university to some small degree in terms of connections, knowing people who will eventually become your business partners, friends, contacts, support network down the road. People you can ask for $500 and get $500 if you need it. Athletes were even cut off from that because they couldn't consort with the boosters. They couldn't do that. Anyone else in the university could. Anyone else in the university could go intern for a law firm or anywhere else. Athletes were explicitly forbidden to even do that. So you're even taken out of the existing fabric of privilege by rule.
Yeah, it's like the only person to whom a sort of a rule against nepotism applies, which is like really dark.
Right. No, absolutely. At one point, Jan Kemp is asked by, I forget who in the athletic department, who matters more to this university, you or Dominique Wilkins, that is star for the University of Georgia. And these departments really do fixate around this idea that, and the NCAA, through advertising and through public relations, really does sell themselves as advocates for these kids in a way that's so fucking nefarious. And I just want to make sure that we underline that, 30 times and bold it about how the universities and the NCAA at large really does see these kids as disposable assets that they expect a return on. The other story I want to talk about is Brenda Monk at Florida State, who at Florida State basically told a member of the basketball team to finish up answering, I believe it was a music appreciation test or a music psychology test for Al Thornton, then a star forward at Florida State. This kid complains to the athletic office, and Brenda Monk resigns. And in questioning by Florida State, she's the only person to appear before this panel voluntarily to explain her work with athletes with learning disabilities. She gets punished by the school with what's called a show cause notice. So basically, a university now has any other school in the country has to show why she would be either why she would be a good hire or how she wouldn't negatively affect another school's athletic department.
Jesus.
She did the right thing and she got punished for it because Florida State had paper classes. And basically the expectation is that, and I want to say about paper classes that the universities are fraudulent in many things, but the biggest fraud they have is pretending like these kids can do both. You cannot, I don't know anyone who could, I certainly couldn't have at 18 manage a major like computer science, or in my case, economics and mathematics, and have played in a Division I program with any success. And it's
a sport
fucking,
where you're getting like routine head injuries.
Right. You're getting CTE. You are going to get CTE.
Liam, could you do me a favor and explain what a paper class is?
Sure. A paper class in this context is sort of I just come out with it. It's a fake class, basically, that universities use to pad grades so that kids are academically eligible to play sports. A few years ago, Spencer, you may know more about this than I do. Was it North Carolina got caught doing it and basically said,
that is correct.
We don't give a fuck, more or less?
North Carolina, primarily through their African American Studies program. That was one of the big programs that they were pushing people through. It's like that and criminal justice, I think. And there were a lot of classes that were transparent gimmies to keep people eligible. And by the way, North Carolina wasn't even that good. Like, they cheated, and there was absolutely no benefit.
What's the benefit to a school of having, like an athletics program that isn't that good, but it's necessary to like lie and cheat and steal in order to support?
Do you have the Mr. Krabs saying money over and over again?
I actually don't, but I can imagine it pretty well.
Just wanted to get that out of the way for our younger viewers who may not know what paper is.
Oh, I thought you were going to say may not know who Mr. Krabs was. Oh. I'm just going to have a fucking aneurysm.
No, they definitely know who Mr. Krabs is.
Yeah. So these schools just don't give a fuck about these players. And we're going to see that. Next slide, please. So this is Owen Thomas. And Owen Thomas was, I believe, a linebacker at the University of Pennsylvania who not a school with a football program of any relevance. And I want to point that out because football is a dangerous sport. As someone who played it, as someone who has had numerous head injuries, I want to say that the universities, beyond it being a money thing, this is I think maybe the worst thing they do is leave these kids to die. Owen Thomas kills himself April 2010 in his off-campus dormitory at the University of Pennsylvania. They do it an autopsy. I don't know what the technical word for it is, but basically a posthumous brain scan, and he is found to have at least the early stages of CTE. I cannot stress enough that if you play football and you play football long enough, you will get CTE.
Isn't one of the fucked up things about CTE, I could be wrong about this, but I have it in my head that like it's one of those things that you can only like definitively diagnose post-mortem, right?
Yes. As of right now, yes.
There's no live test for it.
And it's also one of these like, because brain injuries are very, very weird. It has a lot of like psychological sort of psychiatric symptoms.
Yes.
There sort of emotional imbalance, loss of emotional control and stuff.
It also overlaps with a lot of things that it sort of can be misidentified with, or share symptoms of. There are among a lot of the things that defense attorneys will bring out for this is, how is this any different than clinical depression? Well, in a lot of cases it isn't. It just happens to be correlative with the same guys at the same points on the football field, all manifesting the same results.
Yeah, and it's like also they're all at like the time in their life when they're under extreme stress, which shakes out a lot of stuff, but also at the point where like if you're gonna get a severe sort of psychiatric condition, that's the period where it's most likely to emerge anyway. So yeah, great, fantastic. It's easy to cover up, right?
Yeah, and there are other players too, smaller schools. There's players at bigger schools too, like Costa Cara George, who was at Ohio State, who committed suicide And with him, that didn't show signs of CTE initially, but a later autopsy showed some results. But like it would be hard for me to believe that like football in some part didn't have something to do with that.
Right. I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about, as a fan of football, someone who has played the sport. I don't know what the answer is, but I do want to say that we're not just talking about money. We're gambling literally with children's lives. Yeah, they may be 18 or 19. They are children. And they go to these schools.
Especially if you can't fucking read,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
Did they fucking hand you a waiver or whatever that says, this might, have health effects? If they even do that. And if you can't fucking read it, but you know how to like sign your name on it, whatever,
Right. And the schools.
I mean, rugby, like just as a comparison, rugby does not tackle at the developmental level until late high school in the United States. I don't know what they do in Great Britain, Australia.
I played rugby in school tackling very, very early with like full force and stuff, which is why I'm so normal. But I also feel like maybe just because of like the rules of rugby and the way in which it's played, it's like, I don't know, less immediately dangerous. Like
that's a big. The studies do not back that up. They don't exactly support that. Like rugby still has a tremendous amount of head trauma, especially in the scrum. The scrum is where people have really focused on like minimizing the crunch, right? Because that leads to so many spinal compression injuries and shoulder injuries. But the big savior, the NFL's big savior now is Seahawks tackling, which is essentially rugby tackling, right? Shoulder first, protect the head, lead with the shoulder. That's not exactly how repeated head trauma works. I think it's a little bit of a canard. I think it does make the game safer, but football can't be made safe. It can't. Like it probably helps best to think of football like radiation. There's exposure to it.
I do want to talk about basically that, like these schools. There's something very grotesque about the fact that these schools are able to profit off these kids, and then Penn especially. Because it wouldn't be a bonus episode if I'm doing it without me shit talking Penn one more time. You talk about, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and you talk about, we have all these life-saving advances in medical care, yet your university fields a team in a sport that murders people. There's something deeply grotesque about that. We're going to talk about it in the next slide, but universities don't pay for these kids' health insurance.
Jesus.
So
in a sport where, like, even aside from like brain injuries, where the rest of you gets injured routinely.
Let's say that again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Next slide, please. So this is Northwestern University's football team that tried to unionize that one time. This is truly, I know the causes behind are very grotesque, but I appreciate only Northwestern would try and find a way to shove a labor union into football. So basically, long story short, I've linked. We can link to the Sports Illustrated story, and then the book is called Indentured, about Northwestern football's attempt to unionize, which was ruled on by the NLRB, who said they didn't really rule on whether players were employees. It was just that the novelty of the petition would not have promoted, quote, stability in labor relations. There were a lot of open-ended questions.
The fucking NLRB is such a fucking like FDR ass, New Deal ass institution in their bones, and I hate that makes them one of the most like effective social democratic institutions in the U.S.
So, about a decade ago, Northwestern football players tried to unionize, and this was spurred on by the fact that a lot of former players had realized, former and current players have realized, well, what happens when I get hurt? What happens? We're talking death benefits, a lot of stuff like that. Am I going to be eligible to even go to school anymore because the school can cut my scholarship if I don't produce? So on and so forth.
No.
Right.
No.
Exactly. I believe, in my heart of hearts that maybe nothing will change. But if Starbucks can fucking unionize, these kids can too.
Yeah, or Amazon for that matter.
In February of this year, the NLRB filed an unfair labor practice charge to reject the term student athletes and to include them as under NLRA Section 7, basically that yes, you were protected by labor law, and the NLRB concurred this year. That's just this year. So in the long series of like 23 different steps that have to happen to make this happen, that could be an important one. There are 1,000 courts and people who could intervene, and major conference commissioners last week went to Capitol Hill to sort of intervene because a series of things are sort of caving this framework in, most notably name, image, and likeness, which players can now own and sell and profit from above board, because in two different cases, O'Bannon and Alston versus the NCAA got their ass handed to them in court, like massive. This Supreme Court really thinks that fence posts have more rights than people. Like this court is here to protect property, and people can just die. It's fine. And that court, which ascribes no inherent value to human life outside of a paycheck, that court handed the NCAA both cheeks easily, with Brett Kavanaugh, of all people, saying this: "Nowhere else in America can businesses get away with agreeing not to pay their workers a fair market rate on the theory that their product is defined by not paying their workers a fair market law. And under ordinary principles of antitrust law, it is not evident why college sports should be any different. Let me tell you, if you want the hit 'em up or the ether of legal terms, it is not evident. You say it is not evident, yeah. That means get out my face, motherfucker. That is what that means."
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I think that we're going to talk about that in the next slide. But basically, the central question is, A, why won't the universities pay these fucking kids? And it's because the universities have defined college athletics as being it's an Ouroboros of bullshit nonsense.
Sure, it works well for them. It's profitable, right? So,
and last slide, please. Yeah. So fuck Joe Pa. But yes. Let's talk about sort of what's happening now, and we'll sort of revisit. The NCAA doesn't play players because it doesn't fucking have to, and it's decided that it doesn't have to, and it is predicated on not paying the kid. And there are things that are happening that are sort of chipping away at, I would say, the NCAA's death grip on, being the gap between high school athletics and professional leagues. I don't have it in the notes, but the NBA itself is working out essentially the G League, and is working out a path for players out of high school to join a developmental league that bypasses college entirely. And, whether or not that ever comes to college football, I don't know. I don't really think so. But it's worth noting that the NCAA is starting to, the writing on the wall is coming. And, I want to talk about name, image, and likeness. I want to talk about the new transfer portal rules. So name, image, and likeness refers to just that, and the player's ability, a college player's ability, essentially, to market their name, their image, and their likeness. And this came about because, was it Ed O'Bannon filed that suit? His name Ed O'Bannon?
Yeah, Ed O'Bannon, former player on the UCAA men's basketball team, filed a suit contesting that his name, image, and likeness had been used in a video game franchise for college football. This extended to an entire series of games licensed under the NCAA to EA Sports, another monopolistic presence.
Shit, hold on. Yes.
Fuck. You're so good at podcasts.
Those guys.
Thank you.
The worst
Those guys.
zoo crew ever.
So you could play.
I have the real one. I have
EA Sports.
No,
It's in the game.
I'm just thinking like you're at a
It's in the
morning
game.
zoo crew, and then you have to wait. Stop! I have to find the drop.
I'm a terrible morning zoo host. What do you want from me?
Hold on. Oh yeah.
You're listening to
Oh,
Alice
yeah.
and the Gunch.
So you could buy this game and you could play Tim Tebow or you could play Cam Newton, but they were just listed as their number, and it was obviously them, and but it didn't contain their name, even though you're like, that is a big ass dude who looks a lot like Cam Newton. Turns out,
Yeah, that's Nam
they couldn't do
Kooten.
that.
Yeah,
That's Nam Kooten, and turns out they owed the money for that, and this was met with some bittersweet like gratitude and happiness, because it was like the first whiff of players getting what they deserve. At the same time, we didn't get the cool video game. It's so much better than Madden. It was like, yay, social justice, yay, they get their cut. It was like, shit, we can't play the game anymore until they relicense it. Which they're working on relicensing it. But like, we lost the cool video game, and it was totally worth it. Alston was named Image and Likeness, where again,
Just gotta like
hold
do the
button.
like Pro Evo soccer thing where everybody's named like John Football.
yes.
Yeah, I want that. Like John Boyce and I have talked about that. About we just need to like go ahead and rename everyone individually in the shittiest college football game ever.
Yeah, John Football, Mike Football, Dave Football,
Yeah.
Steve Football.
Yeah.
You would not
He's the
believe
winner.
They're
He's the
all
winner when he
brothers.
plays
Dave
on-
football's
Wow.
tackling
Yeah.
numbers.
It's,
Yeah.
And then we have Ian Soccer.
He's the kicker.
Ironically, he's from the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically now, so schools still can't basically pay the kids, or still won't. But athletes can now do like autograph signings, product endorsements, social media posts, so on and so forth. That's a good first step.
Yeah, it's a renaissance in posting for one thing.
Yes, and the transfer portal now has gotten rid of the "you must sit out a year" thing. So now there's sort of a free agency almost in college. Players are able to go, assuming they're going to get playing time there, they're able to go to a school they want to go to. If say you signed, you signed your letter of intent with Vanderbilt, and then you stopped drinking. And you and you realize you want to, suck it down there in Knoxville. Go Vols. I just, but Spence, you want to talk about more about what you sort of maybe what you think the future is, or anything else you got?
It could go a lot of different ways. I think the one thing people need to know first is that it goes incrementally, right? Good news takes the slow boat. Bad news takes the express. I think you're going to see a lot of continued chipping away at this. The NCAA fell asleep at the wheel for about 15 to 20 years on player image and likeness and on various ways of impending compensation. And now they're bailing out because as long as football does this and it doesn't spread to basketball, they don't really care, because 90 to 95% of their revenue comes from a single basketball tournament. And also college basketball is going to be a lot harder to organize, because we're dealing with in terms of money football, you're talking about 136, 138 schools, depending on the year, who's dropped in, who's dropped out. Basketball's like 400 schools. 500. So they probably have a little more time there, just because it's a little more amorphous and harder to organize, even though there are fewer players. That's the thing that might work for unionization of college basketball. You don't have that many players on a team, therefore they each carry more weight than on a football team, where you literally have to, they call it platooning, right? Like you have to organize it like a small military unit, because you need so many bodies just to play without, getting huge holes in your roster. So the future of the sport, probably there's a couple of different models. One, that they continue to ride along in this sort of Olympic model where people are allowed to live off their endorsements, and those endorsements become a kind of tacit payroll, right? If we say, okay, everybody on the team gets an endorsement deal. Okay. and they all are the same across
an
a year.
endorsement in the form of this gold Trans Am.
Right, and they're annual. In fact, we'll pay you monthly. We'll just take these things up monthly. And you go, that sounds a shitload like a payroll. And they're like, no. It's a team endorsement.
It's a
That's what the Miami Hurricanes are doing.
You score a touchdown, you have to do a NordVPN dance.
So one great thing, by the way, in all of this are player endorsements. They've been so good. DeJuan Jones is this gigantic. He's a lineman who was so big at Ohio State they called him Thanos or Big Thanos. In case you had trouble telling between the two, DeJuan Jones is this enormous dude, and the first endorsement deal he got was for scented candles. He's like, "Yeah, buy my scented candles. They're fantastic. I'm Big Thanos. Buy my candles. I love him. Like, it's been great, you know." And or like Bo Nix was the quarterback at Auburn. The first thing he got was Milo's Sweet Tea was his endorsement deal, because what could be more Alabama than that?
Just a guy who has never consumed anything other than like protein shakes in the last 5 years.
For those of you who are curious, DeJuan Jones is 6'8" and 360 pounds.
Wow.
That is a big boy.
Big Thanos, baby. Go buy his candles. They smell great. Like I've loved that stuff. So the future is for now will probably look a little bit like the Olympic model, and I think that's how teams are going to manage to sort of semi-legitimately pay people. I don't think the sport will look a lot different in terms of the powers that be, because it's always taken a tremendous amount of capital and emotional investment to really make this happen, because the people throwing money in don't get a return. The boosters are just doing this for power. They're just doing this because it's a way to spend their money, where they show up on Saturdays in the best seats. And they get to meet the players and get to be part of the deal and put their name on the side of things. And I don't think that really changes. My ideal is that we end up with something like the English Premier League, where teams. Well, I know that's bad when you go, well, this is a better system.
Yeah.
Where we end up with something where the teams themselves, like a lot of English Premier League teams, started as affiliated teams with something else, right? Or adjacent to something else. And eventually they were spun off into these kind of separate clubs and businesses. That's ultimately what I would like. You know, it would basically be like the University of Alabama football program at the University of Alabama, right?
Yeah, it's like culturally associated, but not materially.
Correct. But not materially, because programs that big are already essentially separate. Ohio State, I remember their quarterback at one point saying, "I'm really looking forward to seeing campus. I'm not over there much." Because he's spent so much time at the football offices that he didn't actually know like what the rest of campus looked like. So, and during COVID, when they had some time off as a result of not playing games, he's like, "Well, yeah, I can finally walk around. Take in the school that I'm supposed to be going to.
Finally learn which state I'm in."
Yeah.
All right.
Jesus, that's fucking grim.
It's grim. No, it's grim. It's terrible. So that's all I had.
Do you want is this the dagger?
Yeah, can I get it?
Is this the dagger?
Fuck Kawhi Leonard. Ross, you had anything you were saying?
Oh, I was going to say we should probably return to tradition here.
Harvard trying to cheat.
No, I'm thinking about going back to where the recruitment for the professional leagues was from corporate recreational sports teams. Yeah, I want to see
the McKinsey football program.
Yeah, the McKinsey football program. You could have like
the fighting nerds.
Yeah, you could have the
oh god, they get their ass kicked.
Yeah,
so
probably.
Bad.
So yeah, that's why I want to see it. I want to see it immediately.
They rely on all these like analytics and spreadsheets, and they just be the Houston Rockets of college football.
You're going to managerialize your special teams unit.
The Pennsylvania Railroad fielded a pretty good baseball team back in the day.
I can't be the only one who thinks that if the troops put a team together, they could dominate the NFL.
It would be really funny to see Facebook put together a team of just the pastiest guys possible and get them clobbered by Halliburton or something.
He has a shit ton of national football titles, Alice.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just making fun of the tweet. You remember that tweet, right?
What
It was
yes, the Young Cons. Yeah,
it was the Young Cons, the conservative hip hop group. I can't be the only one who thinks that if the troops got a team together, they could dominate the NFL.
Okay. So, by the way, you'll notice that when amateurism was codified, Army and Navy start to fall the fuck off real fast. Like they're real good through 40. Like they're real good through 48, 49. All of a sudden, like, hey, we need some rules about how this is done and about how we don't compensate athletes. And Army and Navy go just into the tank.
No. It turns out the armed forces actually rely a lot on guns to get things done.
I will
just imagining a sort of athletic program for the United States Army, like West Point or whatever, where you have to like pursue a serious major. You have to be an infantryman at the same time as you're, kicking or whatever.
So that is basically the deal.
Jesus.
And that is why the academies are so low. So Air Force has my favorite thing. Well, actually, Navy has my favorite thing. Two quick stories. Army, Air Force, the football team trains at high altitude for 2 weeks doing like stuff in the Rockies that's like hard rucking and like combat maneuver type stuff. And then they come down and start fall practice, which is 2-a-days, as well as a full course load. This is why the academy teams generally aren't real good, because they're very, very tired. But that doesn't stop my other favorite thing from happening, which is the tradition of Army and Navy trying to steal each other's mascots. And they're called morale activities. And they've done elaborate things and staged like commando raids to try and steal the mascot, sometimes resulting, I believe, in the injury to said mascot, which it's a ram on one side for Navy, and then it's a mule, I believe, for the other for the Army. The ram's been stolen several times, but you have to actually go to the generals above you and say, listen, I'm going to break several rules and potentially get kicked out of school. You have to intervene for me. So there's this
and they're like,
the generals
football.
And they're like, basically they're like, go ahead, break rules of the academy and the armed forces in the name of football and go steal a farm animal. So they'll go and do it. And then they'll just get sort of mysteriously pardoned because all of these rules are sacrosanct and above standard military rule.
Greatest country in the world,
weird.
baby.
Football is fucking weird.
Sometimes,
it's so weird,
sometimes
man.
you just gotta steal the mask. That sounds funny as hell. I like that a lot.
No, it's not. The ram. It's not a ram. It's a goat. Navy has a goat.
It's a goat.
Bill the goat.
North Carolina's a ram.
Named conveniently Ramses. Go Heels, baby. All right. I think that'll do it for us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a Patreon subscriber.
Yes.
If you stole this one, whatever.
Understandable, so long as it was in the name of football.
Yeah, as long as you asked your general first.
That's right. That's right. If you message one of the guys on like Hell of a Way first, you're fine.
Yeah. Spencer,
I am your general. Ask me for permission.
Spencer, if the people want more Spencer, where can they find more Spencer?
Oh, Lord. Well, first of all, you can find me on Twitter at EDSBS. If that's too much for you, I suggest subscribing to Channel 6. That is link available in my bio on Twitter in the link tree. It's 2 things a week. We will give you 2 things a week for $10. What a deal. What a buy. In addition to that, we'll do the Shutdown Fullcast returning soon in partnership with somebody fabulous to be named later in a press release that I don't know is coming out like in 10 minutes or so. In addition to that, in case that's not enough, I also appear on ESPN on digital doing Debatable. I have a show on the SEC network, which is about nothing but cursed college football, called Thinking Out Loud with my friend Richard Johnson. I think that's it for now.
Busy man.
Busy man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. Yeah,
this was wonderful.
No, it was my pleasure talking sports ball with y'all.
I don't like that term.
Sports ball.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, I know. I don't either. But whatever.
It's a bad term.
It's terrible.
Yeah. It's a bit for y'all. But y'all, yeah, and the listeners should. Yeah, that's good. The listeners should hear this. By the way, I'm absolutely fucking thrilled to be on here. All right, because this is like I don't listen to podcasts, and I only listen to 2 of them, and this is indicative of like. This is probably, I think there's probably 3 of us in the world who do this. I subscribe to 2 podcasts. I subscribe to y'all's, and I've actually listened to like 30 episodes. which is probably 29 more than I've listened to any other podcast. And the other one is Adeptus Ridiculous, the Warhammer podcast. That is all vibes and no accuracy.
Go check out that Warhammer podcast. And
Absolutely.
It's great. Fucking great, man.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.